This episode of Geek's Guide to the Galaxy is made possible thanks to support from listeners like you. So if you enjoy the show and want it to continue, please support us on Patreon over at patreon.com/geeks or via PayPal over at geeksguideshow.com/crowdfunding. And I want to give a special thank you to David Dag Murray, who just signed up this week to support us on Patreon. David also just wrote us this 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Thank you, David Barr-Kirtley, and all of the guests and celebrities who are on Geek's Guide. Every time I listen to the podcast, my curiosity gets sparked in a new way, and I feel like I am at home with fellow geeks. Great job. Love the podcast. So big thanks again to David Dag Murray for that great review, and for supporting us on Patreon. All right, so now let's get to our show.
Wired.com presents The Geek's Guide to the Galaxy. And here's your host, David Barr-Kirtley.
Hello, and welcome to episode 494 of Geek's Guide to the Galaxy. Today on the show we'll be discussing the movies Weird Science, Innerspace, Escape from New York, Night of the Comet, and Howard the Duck. And this will involve spoilers for all of those movies, so just be aware of that. And we've previously discussed 80s science fiction movies back in episodes 378 and 490, so definitely check those out if you missed them. And I'm joined by 3 guests. So first up we've got Andrea Kail, making her 23rd appearance on the show. She's a graduate of the Odyssey Writers Workshop, and her short fiction appears in the Writers of the Future anthology, Fantasy Magazine, and Lightspeed. She's been a television writer, producer, and script supervisor for shows such as Late Night with Conan O'Brien, The Chew, and WWE's Monday Night Raw and Friday Night SmackDown, and she's currently shopping her reality show The Night. So Andrea, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Dave. Good to be back.
Then next up we've got Matthew Kressel, also making his 23rd appearance on the show. He's the author of the novel King of Shards, and his short story Now We Paint Worlds was just published on Tor.com. Together with Ellen Datlow, he hosts the monthly fantastic fiction reading series at the KGB Bar in New York, and his second novel, Queen of Static, is available now on his Patreon page over at patreon.com/Matt Kressel. So Matt, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Dave. Good to be back.
And also joining us today is Tom Gerencer, making his 22nd appearance on the show. His short fiction appears in magazines such as Galaxy's Edge, and in books such as New Voices in Science Fiction. He's the author of the business book Think Like Google, and the short story collection Intergalactic Refrigerator Repairmen Seldom Carry Cash. And his popular science book How It's Made, written for the Discovery Channel, will be out in December. So Tom, welcome to the show.
It's great to be here.
Okay, so let's start off with Andrea, and have you tell us about your history with these 5 movies.
Well, some of them I've seen a million times, and some of them, or actually I should just say one of them, I've only seen this first time was yesterday. That's Howard the Duck. But the rest of them I know fairly well. And, you know,
which one have you seen a million times?
Oh, Weird Science. That was cornerstone of my teenage years. It's one of those movies that I can still quote however many years it's been later. There's lines from that movie I still roll out, even though nobody knows the reference except me. But I still use them. Yeah.
I would know them, Andrea.
You would know them. You would.
And then the other ones, you've like Innerspace, Night of the Comet, Escape from New York.
Night of the Comet, I loved when it came out, but I have not seen it in years. Innerspace, I remember very well when it came out. Again, haven't seen it in years. And Escape from New York, I must have seen a million times, but I couldn't tell you the last time I watched them. So all of them I haven't watched in years, the ones that I know very well. But
yeah, and just to make it clear for listeners, so this is a panel of movies that we remember being awesome when we saw them back in the 80s. And we just rewatched them, and we're going to let you know whether we still think that they're awesome. But the awesomeness is somewhat retrospective in nature.
Yeah.
And so then how about Matt? What's your history with these 5 movies?
I had seen all of them. I don't think I have ever seen Night of the Comet all the way through. And for some reason, I always confused this movie with Maximum Overdrive. So when people said, "Oh, have you ever seen Night of the Comet?" I'm like, "Yeah, I've seen that movie a lot." And then when I sat down to watch this, I'm like, "Holy crap, I've never seen this movie." So that was interesting. And the other one so Howard the Duck was one of those movies that I didn't like as a child. I know we're going to get into this, and I avoided watching it. Like, I've never seen it all the way through, and this was the first time where I think I actually sat through the whole thing
and lived to tell the tale.
Yes, so I know we'll get into our thoughts on that, but Weird Science I've seen a lot. I don't know if I've seen it enough to quote it. Innerspace, I do quote it actually. My God, I'm possessed. And and Escape from New York. Of course, I've seen that, but not as many times as Innerspace or Weird Science.
Okay, and then how about Tom?
Weird Science I had seen many, many times when I was younger, and then hadn't watched it for probably about 30 years. And then Escape from New York is one of those movies I just watch every once in a while, and I've always liked it. I'm a sucker for Kurt Russell. And, who doesn't love Lee Van Cleef? But Night of the Comet, had never actually seen that movie. Had never seen it. Thought I had seen it. But when I started watching it, I was like, nope, never, don't remember any of this. Except for the comet at the beginning. I was like, wait, that's from Maximum Overdrive.
See, I'm not the only one.
Not at all. And Innerspace, I had seen in the movie theater when it first came out, and thought it was a fun movie, and then hadn't seen it since. And then Howard the Duck had never seen all the way through until this week. So.
Okay, so you guys have seen these more than I have then, because I only saw Weird Science once in the movie theater when it came out. I think I only saw Innerspace once in the movie theater when it came out. I remembered both of those being great. I had lots of friends who were always talking up Escape from New York, but I think I'd only ever seen the beginning on TV, because I definitely remember the part with the president's escape pod being found empty, but I'm not sure I ever saw a lot more of the movie than that. Night of the Comet I'd never even heard of before. And Howard, the reason Howard the Duck is on here is because I remember very distinctly coming out of the movie theater as a kid when I saw it. I would have been like 8 and saying, "That's my new favorite movie." And then I'd never seen it again. But and then like people would be like, "That was the worst movie of all time," and I was like, "No, it was." As a kid, I was like, "No, it was good." And then like after a while, I just stopped saying that.
You valued your friendships.
Yeah, I was just curious.
It was peer pressure, or you actually thought it was bad? Like, which is it?
No, it was peer pressure.
Oh,
it was peer
okay,
pressure.
right.
Yeah.
And you still like it to this day.
Well, we're gonna get into that. But yeah, so I mean, really the reason that we're doing this panel is because Andrea really wanted to talk about Weird Science.
I did. And Night of the Comet.
and Night of the Comet, yeah. So let's start off with Weird Science. So the premise here, and all that I remembered, like, of this movie was the scene where there's like the wireframe of the woman's breasts, and they're choosing how big they want her breasts to be. That was the only part of the movie I remembered from when I was like 7. But yeah, so the premise of the movie is that there's these two unpopular teenage boys, and they use their computer to create a perfect woman. And then she kind of like teaches them to be popular, I guess, or whatever.
Stand up for themselves.
Yeah. But so Andrea, talk more about the role that Weird Science has played in your life.
Well, it's definitely a movie I remember seeing in the theater. I remember absolutely loving it. And, everything from the music, which is Oingo Boingo, to, Anthony Michael Hall, everything about it I loved as a teenager. In retrospect, and here's where in retrospect, I still love it. It still makes me laugh. It still doubles me over with laughter, but boy, is it problematic. Mm-hmm. It is, as all the other, and this conversation came up a couple of years ago about the problematic issues with John Hughes movies, because I grew up with those John Hughes movies. I love them. But when you look back at it as an adult, you realize, oh my God, this is kind of terrible. Some of the things that happen. And when you as an adult woman, the misogyny is just over the top in some scenes. I was actually starting to count how many times a woman was called crazy bitch or stupid bitch. There was bimbo, there was hussies. The word faggot got rolled out, as it is in a couple of John Hughes movies. Sorry, I've gone right off into the political thing here, but I feel like I need to address it right off the bat because I still love this movie. It's a hilarious movie with a lot of really big problems about women. Yeah. Anybody else have any thoughts on that?
Well, why don't we come back to the problematic aspects in a second? I'm going to start off with just that I remember this being great, but like I said, I didn't remember anything about it other than the very basic premise. And this was like way worse than I remembered. Because of I thought the plot basically didn't exist. So that's that's the first thing I'm gonna focus on. But maybe before I get on my whole rant about that, let's just get Matt and Tom in here. So Matt, just overall, what was it like coming back to Weird Science?
Yeah, I mean, I think I definitely liked it as a kid, quite a bit, but I also, was very much a nerd, although I didn't identify it. I willingly identify as a nerd in the 80s because, now it's like people wear nerdiness as a badge, but in the 80s it was not. It was like something to be ashamed of. So like
we were nerds before it was cool.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
And I'm kind of annoyed by it.
Yeah.
All these interlopers.
Right. So like I recognize like that I had a lot more in common with the nerds than like the cool guys, and so I was always very like coy about my enjoying of this movie because I don't want to like it too much because then people think I'm a nerd too, and it was just such a like a nerdy thing to do. But watching it now as an adult, similar to Andrea in that I laughed at the scenes like just Anthony Michael Hall is just he carries this movie. He's just so great. But
I also think Kelly LeBrock is
I was just going to say, Kelly LeBrock,
she's
like,
fantastic.
I remember like as a kid thinking like, oh, she doesn't really say like she doesn't really do a lot, but like now as an adult I'm watching it and I'm like, oh no, she's great. And I just think like there's a lot of problems with the representation of women. Like the two girls are basically prizes for the boys. Like they don't really have any individual characters to them. They're pretty much abused. Like their boyfriends just literally abandon them in the mall. Yeah. To go after like on an escalator. Like, oh my God, there's a hot girl. See you later. Yeah. And like they just still like, those are just guys. And I mean I think that the message of the film is actually a good one. It's basically like you shouldn't look for perfection. You should look for someone who's real, who has who may have flaws, warts and all, but that is going to lead you to something more meaningful. And I think that they could have done that by making the girls have deeper characters. Yeah. And if they could show their strengths and their flaws, then it would make sense for them to it would be a more powerful ending when they finally accept that, oh, I want to be with these real people with, like I have warts too. Like clearly the two main characters have a bunch of warts, right? So it would just be more meaningful if they recognized that they themselves were flawed and they want to be with someone who's more like them, also flawed, also human. There was also like that level of ickiness where they're just like, it basically was like, predates internet porn. It's like, let's go on the computer and make the perfect girl, right? And I think even as a kid, when I saw this, I was like, there's something icky about this, and I couldn't quite put my finger on it, but I think that was it. But even with all that, there's still some fun moments. Like I really like when the the zombie dudes arrive with the shotguns and tear up the party.
The Mad Max guys.
Yeah, the Mad Max.
Literally.
Yeah,
the same
literally.
actor.
Yes.
Yeah, and like I really love, when they turn Chet into a pile of like a little goblin, feces goblin.
Yeah.
Bill Paxton also is fantastic.
Bill Paxton is fantastic, and like I hated him as a kid because he was like I identify like all the bullies I ever had was Bill Paxton, was Chet, and like I think John Hughes was really good at showing that the nerds, the outcasts, like the non-popular kids, like really had really powerful, strong feelings and were generally like ignored by most people. Like, and I like he focuses in on them, right? Because like that's most of his stuff is about, like, is about that. And I think like that aspect of it, like just the way he shows how like, desperate these guys are. I thought it was actually kind of affecting, in a way that they're just super lonely, but they're also clueless. Like they have, in typical Gen X fashion, there's nobody home, right? The kids are just left on their own to do whatever they want. And,
right.
But yeah, it's still fun, but definitely problematic. I don't think it would ever be made today.
No.
I want to get Tom in here too. So Tom, overall, what was your reaction to going back and watching this?
Well, I'm going to land squarely in Andrea's camp that despite all its flaws, I still love it as a story of two nerds who desperately want the wrong thing and then almost learn to want the right thing. Like Matt said, I feel like the two female characters could have been a lot stronger. But having said that, I do want to get into the politics. I feel like every movie from the 80s that we discussed, we spend 10 minutes, excusing the casual racism and sexism. Well, of course they killed puppies in this movie. Back then, that's what we did. We killed puppies. And I think after a while, I start to feel like I'm doing something wrong by saying that every time. And did anybody have a problem also? As much as I love Anthony Michael Hall, and as much as I loved this scene when I was 17
know exactly
years
what
old,
you're going to say.
I know what you're going to say.
Go ahead.
The jazz club.
Jazz club. Yeah, I mean, what? Every kid in my class endlessly quoted that scene when we were kids, and we thought it was great. And watching it as a grown up, I'm like, I was cringing through the whole thing. I was just like, oh, this is horrible.
Yeah.
No argument there.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll push back a little bit. I think that the premise of this movie, I think, is really good and is fine and is sort of universal. It's like Pygmalion, right? It's like, just the idea of creating the perfect woman, I think is like, whether you like that or not, I just think that's a part of human nature. And, I don't think that that's, people have been telling stories about that for hundreds or thousands of years. I don't think that's ever going to really change. And I don't have any problem with that in and of itself. And I agree with Matt that the ending of this movie, I think, is the right ending, which is that they realize that this sort of like fantasy girl isn't what they really want, and it's better to form meaningful human connections with real people who have flaws and everything, just like you. So I think the beginning of the movie is fine. I think the ending of the movie is fine. And the problem for me is just that like nothing connects the beginning to the end. It's just like one scene that's sort of like funny and weird and random after another. And so then all the character, and there's essentially zero character development. And then there's this like really contrived thing at the climax where like Lisa, who has magic powers for some reason, summons this gang of biker mutants, and then the boys have to decide to be brave. And that's like 100% of the character and plot development is in that scene. And then we're into the denouement. So there's not really any character. We don't really see these boys going on a journey of, becoming more confident or whatever. And then like what to me would be the most interesting story element is where the popular guys come to them and say, could you create us a girl like this? And then there's sort of the moral dilemma of should they do that, or like, and that to me would be really interesting, but then that just kind of like goes wrong and gets played for laughs. And so it's like, to me, it's just sort of like a bunch of jokes and there's not really any character or plot development between the beginning and end of the movie. So any reactions to that?
Yeah, I don't care. Sorry. I care that you care. I don't. The movie, and I
But
don't.
you don't disagree either,
not
right?
particularly. On this viewing, what I did notice at the end is they have the big scene where they stand up to the Mad Max characters, which comes out of nowhere. They literally just decide to do it just because of the girls, but then they're like, all right, we're going to do it now, as opposed to 5 seconds ago they were hiding in a closet.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Which was very just like out of nowhere, but okay. But then the thing that really struck me about the ending was they had that standoff with the killer bikers, but then Chet comes back and they're back to being wimps. And that made no sense. And the person who deals with Chet is Lisa.
That's right.
So that was a little bit of a disconnect. But
yeah, and they should be standing up to Chad, and they should be standing up to Robert Downey Jr. and that other guy.
Yeah.
Like, why is there a mutant biker gang in this movie at all? Like,
because it's fun. I think
Apparently-
here's my thought on this, though. I think I'm still looking back at it as the movie I loved as a 15-year-old, and there's like part of my brain just refuses to analyze it as a movie.
yeah.
It's a comfort movie for me, because I saw it when I was.
Apparently, I read that John Hughes wrote the script for this in 2 days while filming Breakfast Club.
Jesus.
And
Oh, wow.
I thought it showed.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense. I was thinking it was an early John Hughes film because when I saw it now, I was like, oh, I had no idea ever that this was John Hughes until last week, basically. And so I was thinking, oh, this must have been his first one because it's real rough around the edges, but it makes sense that he just wrote it in a couple of days.
Yeah. I mean, some of the individual set pieces really work, though, like where Kelly LeBrock goes to Anthony Michael Hall's parents and
Oh my God. Oh.
She pulls the gun out, like she's like, what are they going to do at the party? Nothing like witchcraft, but chips,
dips, chains, whips.
And whips.
No, we're not talking
all the time.
Candle wax on the nipples or anything. That's
Yeah.
one of the.
Witchcraft.
My friend and I had that speech memorized, and we would just roll it out all the time. It still makes me laugh. Still,
Yeah, like I used to
Never
say it all the
tossed off,
time.
Mom.
never tossed off.
Tossing off in the bathroom.
I think, Matt, you said that Anthony Michael Hall carries it. Like, every scene he's in is just abso-fucking-lutely hilarious.
Well,
Yeah.
even just
So
like the
good.
way he holds the juice box.
Yeah,
He's like talking to Wyatt, and he's like holding the juice box. I'm like, I mean, so like this like individual scenes are actually really funny. It's just I agree with you, Dave, that there is no character development in this at all.
Yeah, but
It's
and
just
I
fun.
agree with you, Dave, that all the plot points you're making, but I still, because there's so many great fun individual scenes in it, I just kind of gloss over all that and enjoy the whole thing. And also because there is some, although there's not really an event to event plot happening, there is a lot of heart there where you can tell you're starting out with some real characters who have real problems, and they kind of move through it in a way that's fun and makes sense to an adolescent. And then like Andrea said, I think I kind of carried that kind of glow for the movie forward to now.
I just want to point out one of the other great scenes that I always remember is the grandparents coming in.
Oh, yeah.
You
Yes.
can't come in here hitting people with your Rex Harrison hat.
Yeah,
Fucking kills me.
there's nothing that a boy needs more than his grandparents.
Right.
Yes.
And then it's like, it's so wrong that they're in the closet later just frozen.
so
and she's like, oh,
awesome.
look how happy they are.
They're not
And
aging.
And then when Chet opens the pantry and like, hi Graham, hi Pops, and then wait
And
a
then he's
minute.
like, zoinks.
Yeah,
Okay, so I wanted more plot and character, and I thought all the magic stuff was kind of stupid, but I seem to be in the minority on that one.
I think you're just coming to it as like assessing it as a real movie as opposed to being nostalgic. I think I don't know, maybe.
Yeah. All right. Well, we got 4 more other movies to do, so let's move on to Innerspace. So again, I remembered loving this, and I remembered a lot from this movie. So, but basically the premise is that there's Dennis Quaid is a handsome, arrogant test pilot, and he volunteers for an experiment where he's going to be shrunk down and injected into a rabbit in a little like life pod thing. sort of a riff on the Fantastic Voyage movie. And so, during this procedure, a rival corporation busts in to try to disrupt it and steal the technology. And one of the scientists ends up fleeing from the lab and injecting Dennis Quaid, unbeknownst to him, into Martin Short, who's this hypochondriac grocery store clerk. And then eventually Dennis Quaid manages to sort of like hook up his pod to Martin Short's ears and eyes and stuff, so he can see what he's seeing and talk to him inside his head. And hijinks ensue. So Tom, overall thoughts on Innerspace?
I had seen it when I was younger and remembered it being, I had a really good time watching it in the theater, and then I hadn't seen it until again recently. And when I sat down to watch it, I was thinking, oh yeah, I remember this. This is probably kind of goofy, silly movie. And then I was really kind of shocked by how much of a cool plot it had, especially the first half or so. I was like, wow, this actually is really tightly plotted. It makes a lot of sense. And then as it got kind of toward the second half of the movie, there just started being more kind of zany things happening that didn't really seem to make a lot of sense with the plot. And then I was like, okay, that's why I remember this being kind of a sillier movie than more so than fun science fiction. But overall, I really liked it. I really thought Martin Short is really fun to watch anytime he's on the screen. He's great. I mean, he's got some stuff right now with Steve Martin. He's got like a live act, and he's just brilliant. He's just super funny. He always was funny on Saturday Night Live. He's funny in this. Dennis Quaid, I really liked in this as well. I thought, his character, again, almost like in Enemy Mine, his character is not really that likable, probably more likable than the Enemy Mine character. But I thought he did a good job acting it out. And Melanie Griffith is pardon me.
Meg Ryan.
Meg Ryan. I'm sorry. Meg Ryan. Yeah. Meg Ryan is just absolutely, fun to watch anytime she's on the screen as well. And I thought the plot, the story was really fun, and I thought there were lots of little fun, really fun moments and funny lines, just throwaway lines like the who was it? The guy with the hand, for one thing, with the replaceable hand. That was a cool idea. And then the department store manager, the guy, he was in Blues Brothers as well, when he's like trying to talk to Martin Short, and then this lady comes up and she's like, "Smell this." Yeah, like puts this thing in his face, and then it just kind of scene just cuts away, and I was like, "That's so brilliant." There were so many fun little. Or then the at the beginning when they're explaining the science, and the guy is like the head scientist who ends up getting killed is like explaining how the pod works, and he's like, you hear him in the background while like explaining while other dialogue is happening, and he says, "It's basically just a Van de Graaff generator coupled with a common carpet sweeper." And I was like, what?
They're just having fun with that.
Yeah, they're just like, whatever. We're just gonna. If somebody's really listening, we're gonna get them. And then also the little references, like the tiny chip that makes you shrink is called a PIM, which I was like, oh, that's like out of Marvel. Except they explain later that it's spelled PEM, not PYM. So. If anybody doesn't get the reference, it's the Ant-Man thing. But anyway, that's my overall thoughts. And I thought it was a lot of fun. I thought they put a lot of effort into making like fun, little, tiny, enjoyable moments. And I thought the acting was great. So,
yeah. How about Andrea?
I remember liking it when it came out and watching it again yesterday. I was, it stood the test of time. It is, it's funny. It's it's sweet. Martin Short and his physical comedy is just unparalleled. Yeah. And he's also just charming. Dennis Quaid, who, as you might recall, I had a very big problem with his performance in Enemy Mine. It was the thing that kind of ruined that movie for me, is perfect in this because this is his character. He's kind of a one-trick pony. As the lovable rogue, and he does it really well, and it's perfect for this part, but he was kind of doing it in Enemy Mine too, so that's why I think I had the problem. But here he's perfect. it moves. It's got a fairly believable plot. And it's just a fun ride. You know, I got some quibbles about things here and there, but no big deal to me.
Okay.
But I do want to point out that the bad guy with the hand is the biker guy in Weird Science. It's
I
the same
thought
guy.
so.
Yeah.
I thought
What?
so, yeah.
That was the
Yes.
same guy?
Same
Yes.
guy. Yep.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay, wow.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
Okay. How about Matt? Overall thoughts?
This was a film that I loved in the 80s, and I was just so excited about like the technology and the cool gadgets and stuff. And yeah, Martin Short really just carries this movie for me. Like I think if you try to take this movie too seriously, it just falls apart. But like if you step back a little bit and just take it for the comedy, it's kind of brilliant.
Yeah.
I love like Tom said, like even just the secondary characters, like the grocery store owner and like his the other checkout clerk girl, what's her name? Who works with Martin Short and like he runs into her at the nightclub.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh my
Yeah,
God.
that's great.
And I thought the way they actually rendered the inside of Martin
the
Short's
special
body.
effects are great.
Yes.
Special effects were actually really pretty good for 1987.
Yeah.
Just
That's
looking
true.
back now, and I'm like, this is actually pretty good. That being said, I mean, this is like the nerd in me. I wanted to see more of his insides. Like we kind of see his like we see his like blood vessels, but just briefly. Like, but you know, if you remember Fantastic Voyage,
Yes.
where they get attacked by like the white blood cells and you know, there's this like interesting things in the body that he runs into, and like I think they do that a little bit here. Like he goes to the optic nerve and he goes to his stomach. And then one point he goes into Meg Ryan and it's like, oh, I'm a father. Okay. Like, I mean, I actually thought that was kind of moving when he's, you know.
Yeah, well, that was one of the few things that I remembered was that, that Martin Short and Meg Ryan kiss, and Dennis Quaid ends up getting transferred into her body and then ends up in her womb and sees that she's pregnant with his child. That was one of the things that stuck with me for 40 years or whatever.
Yeah, and I think there was something really moving about the fact that he saw his own child up close, and that really worked actually. The part I think that didn't really work for me is when the evil guy and woman, they get like shrunk down to 1/3 size, and then there's just sort of like, then they're doing like that slapstick comedy where they're in like the trunk and they're in the car. I don't know. It's really stupid. I don't know. It just it got a little ridiculous for me. But I mean, the whole thing's ridiculous. But Martin Short. Like I said, where he's like in the doctor's office and he's like, I'm here, I'm in your head. And he stands up. Oh my God, I'm possessed.
Yeah.
Robert Picardo. I completely forgot that he was in this.
Yep.
Which one was he?
But that's because he's playing a Hispanic man.
The cowboy. He plays the cowboy.
He's a cowboy.
Okay.
Yeah. So he was good, you know, like, it gets a little ridiculous where he's like, you know, Dennis Quaid's like, oh, all I have to do is, you know, just adjust the muscles and I can completely change your face.
That made no sense.
I was like, wait, okay, I don't know. But I just rolled with it.
Yeah.
It's a fun movie, I think. And I think it's worth a rewatch today. I wouldn't necessarily say I love the movie, but it's definitely fun.
Well, let me tell you what my issue is with it, is that, again, like, so you have these two characters. I mean, and Dennis Quaid and Martin Short are absolutely perfect and absolutely fantastic in this movie. But so the plot, I think, is supposed to be, or the character arc is supposed to be, that Dennis Quaid is confident but not caring, and that's why he has this whole fight with Meg Ryan at the beginning. And then Martin Short is caring but not confident, and then they form this team, and then over the course of the movie, Dennis Quaid teaches Martin Short to be more confident, and Martin Short teaches Dennis Quaid to be more caring.
Mm-hmm.
And it sort of does that in terms of Martin Short's character development, but doesn't really do anything with Dennis Quaid's character development. And I think that that's the biggest missing hole in this movie for me, is that then he gets to get back together with Meg Ryan at the end and they get married. And it's like, well, wait, none of their relationship issues were really addressed or resolved or even really mentioned.
Right. It was basically,
movie.
he saw that she was pregnant. Oh, okay, let's get married. Like it was, yeah, there was not really any development on his part. I used to love Dennis Quaid as an actor as a kid, and like watching him as an adult, he kind of grates on me. He's the lovable asshole was like a very common trope in the 80s. And they're like, oh yeah, he's such an asshole. He's a drunk. He comes into like the award ceremony and, curses everyone out and falls over stumbling drunk. But that's just the way he is, that stuff I have very little patience for. Like, but I think that, yeah, Dave, what you said, like if they had a couple beats of him recognizing, hey, I haven't been such a great guy. I need to be better. It would have worked more, but I don't think this movie, this movie kept that lighthearted tone throughout, and I feel as if, it missed that, but I was okay with it missing that.
Yeah, but then that's the other thing is I think there's too many villains in this movie. So you have Victor Scrimshaw, Margaret Kanker, Mr. Igo, and the cowboy, and I think they should have maybe 2 villains in this movie. You need one who goes inside Martin Short, and you need one who doesn't go inside Martin Short. And I think they could have, it would have been just, and they're like so much time is taken up. And I didn't remember any of these villains at all from when I saw this as a kid. That didn't stay with me at all. And I see why rewatching it, because they're just sort of like C grade James Bond villains. They're so ridiculous.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think that they should have cut out at least 2 of them and used that screen time to develop the relationship between Martin Short and Dennis Quaid, which is really what you're, and Meg Ryan, I guess, too. But that's what you're here for, is this sort of buddy comedy thing. And I feel like that kind of gets shortchanged in all the like ridiculous villain antics.
Yeah, I think the most exciting parts for me are, Dennis Quaid flying around inside Jack, and also just like Jack's reaction to things are just like, that's what drives it. And rewatching this now, like I probably had seen this movie maybe 10 times as a kid, maybe more. And like, I did not remember like maybe the last third up until like the finale. I was like, I don't remember any of this. And I think it's like you said, Dave, it's just, there's one villain after another. And we were kind of away from Dennis Quaid and Martin Short, who I think are the strengths of the film.
Yes. So I think it's just a terrific premise, and I mean there's a lot to like about it, but I think it sounds like we all pretty much agree that it kind of like, I don't know, goes on a little too long and gets too unfocused and too much weird.
It is 2 hours. I was timing some of them. It was which is ridiculous.
And this is like a 90-minute movie, like by its nature a 90-minute movie, if ever there was one.
Yeah.
But I think as Matt said, it's all about Martin Short's performance. He carries the whole thing. The one thing I remember very vividly is the dancing scene where Martin Short dances in Dennis Quaid's apartment to what's the song? Dancing the Night Away.
Mm-hmm.
That scene was huge at the time, and I think it brought that song back. So it's right there. Him and his physical comedy just carry the whole thing. That's what you remember, and that's what still is to this day the fun part about it.
Yeah, totally.
All right, Escape from New York. So in this movie, New York has been turned into a prison colony, and they've built a giant wall around it. And people are just, if you're sent there, it's a life sentence, and there's no guards or anything. It's just, every man for himself. And the president's plane is hijacked and crashes in this city-sized prison colony. And the president escapes is jettisoned in an escape pod and is captured by the local criminals. And a special forces soldier turned convict named Snake Plissken, played by Kurt Russell, is given 24 hours to go in and rescue the president in exchange for a full pardon. So Matt, overall thoughts on Escape from New York?
So I have a lot of thoughts. So I first saw this movie I was a kid. My cousin's like, "Oh, you never saw Escape from New York? You would love it. It's got like all this cool tech. It's supposed to be in the future." And like, I remember watching it as a kid and kind of feeling like bored about halfway through, and then it sort of picks up again. Like, so I think I love the idea of Escape from New York more than I love the movie. Like, I think Snake Plissken is an awesome character, and I think like the setup of the film is great. Like, I love this idea. It's just like, yeah, crime's so bad. Let's just wall off Manhattan and put all the criminals in there and let them fend for themselves. And like, that's just it's such a ridiculous setup, but it's so great. Right. And, I grew up in New York, near New York City. And we used to visit my grandmother who lived in Manhattan, every weekend. And, at one point, I think it was like in the 80s, she had the option to buy the apartment and for whatever reason did not. And I asked my father, I'm like, why didn't you do that? He's like, well, the city was pretty bad at the time and we didn't think, you kids would want to live there. Talk about, hindsight is 2020, right? That was a terrible decision. But anyway.
But totally understandable because this is basically what New York was like.
New York, yes. It was. It was. No, but New York was pretty bad. Like I do remember driving home from my grandmother's house. And so there's, the scene in the film where they're like, oh, this is Broadway. Why are you driving down Broadway? Yeah. Like everyone's just throwing stuff at their car. Like this actually would happen if you drove down certain streets in the city. Like I remember, people throwing stuff at our car and I like fireworks and, of course the squeegee men who would like,
the squeegee men
put shit on your windshield and then clean it off and ask for $5. So like the city was pretty bad. So like, I love it that, John Carpenter's like, yeah, we're going to just take this to the extreme. Like the city's so bad. It's now just like a prison colony.
Yeah.
So I love that idea. And I think that, like I want to like this movie more than I do. And I think it's just because I feel like by the third act, it just gets kind of slow. Like Snake is a good character, but I missed Kurt Russell's kind of smarmy quips that he does in Big Trouble in Little China, right? And in this, he doesn't have too many of those. And I love that John Carpenter is like, I'm not going to take, like, I don't care what anyone fucking thinks I'm going to do. Like, there's a scene where like Snake is walking, through a building, like deep underground. I think it was the theater. And he sees like three men literally rape a woman. And Snake's just like, whatever, it keeps walking. And like, I'm like, holy shit, that's fucked up. But also like, wow, like the director was just like, that's the world I want to create. Okay. Like not that I agree with that. I think it's horrible, but I was just kind of like, okay, this director is just telling me, he's going to do whatever the hell he wants. And so I think that aspect of it, I thought it was bold, but by the time they got to like the big wrestling match, where they're going to spike each other, I was like, I don't know. I'm not that heavily invested in this.
Well, let me say, man, because I totally 100% agree with you. I think that this movie basically has three acts, right? There's like, there's the setup where Snake gets his mission and is sent in and the president goes missing and all that stuff. I think all that's fantastic. And then I really like the ending too. And then in the middle, it's just like really sort of aimless and like, it seems, like there's like John Carpenter's wife has a part, like there's like all these characters who like aren't very interesting and don't really do anything. And it just seems like they're just trying to get this up to a feature length running time to me. So I'm just curious, does anyone disagree that the middle of the movie kind of drags or
no, not
isn't
at all.
that exciting?
No, he just walks around.
Yeah, I've always felt the middle is kind of a little bit generic action movie type of thing.
There isn't even that much action. He just kind of walks around a lot.
He's walking through the streets.
Yeah. It's kind of like it was like a tourist guide to decrepit, to bad neighborhoods in New York. you talked about coming to the city. I grew up in the city. I grew up in the edge of one of the worst neighborhoods in the city at the time in the 70s and 80s. And I can guarantee I was shocked. I looked it up to see if they shot it here. They didn't. Because apparently John Carpenter didn't think it was burnt out enough. And I'm like, I grew up in Alphabet City. There were like lots of burned out cars. Old buildings were shooting galleries. I was shocked that they didn't even try to shoot it here because it really was that bad. There's the whole famous 1970s when New York was bankrupt and Ford wouldn't give us any money, and the headline on the newspaper, the Daily News, was Ford to City drop dead. So yes, it was very realistic to me as a New Yorker who grew up in that type of New York, but just as a storyteller, it's like it looked kind of like a video game where you just have the character with the gun walking through things.
Mm-hmm.
When you're lost, you don't know where the next checkpoint
exactly
is. I mean, but to that point, it just showed me like how little was happening. So like when Ernest Borgnine shows up, and like I'm like, oh my God, he's so great as the cabbie. Like he's amazing, and I wanted more of him.
Yeah.
And that was just because Snake wasn't really doing or saying much,
Yeah. He was doing some weird Clint Eastwood impersonation, wasn't he?
Every one of my friends, I used to love this movie when I was a kid, and my friends and I would watch it, would like rent it and be like, let's get this one. You'd be in the movie store and be like, let's get this one again. We'd be like, all right, love it. But we'd watch it and we'd really enjoy it, but we would all just completely, crap on that. Like, why does he think he has to sound like Clint Eastwood in this? He's totally doing a Clint Eastwood impression. And when I went back and watched it, I was ready for that. And I didn't think it was as bad as I thought when I was a kid. But yeah, it is definitely a gritty kind of Clint Eastwood voice he's doing. I think because, Kurt Russell was, when he was younger, he was like the Disney fan. He was like the Disney star. Like he was like the track athlete and really, goody two-shoes type of character. And I think he was really trying to break away from that and be like an anti-hero for the first time. And he was kind of groping a little bit, like, what do I do? And I think that's what he settled on, was the Clint Eastwood voice. And I still think it's fun. I still enjoy it, but I enjoy it in the sense of like, I love this character, and at the same time, I'm going to make fun of him. Kind of like, I love Bono from U2, but I'm always kind of laughing at the way he preaches on stage, or used to preach on stage.
Let me just mention two sort of interesting trivia things about this movie. So one is that William Gibson watched this and was really taken with the part where Snake, he says something like about how he did an operation over Leningrad or something. Mm-hmm. And William Gibson was like, oh, wow, that really like conjures up this whole world with just one line. I want to do something like that in Neuromancer. And that's what he did.
Wow.
And then also the poster for Escape from New York has the decapitated head of the Statue of Liberty lying in the middle of a street, and that's not actually in the movie. Like you see the Statue of Liberty and it has its head in the movie. And so J.J. Abrams, it always bothered him that the movie poster didn't match the movie, and so when he made Cloverfield, he had a scene where the Statue of Liberty's head ends up in the middle of the street.
Nice.
So that there actually would be a movie where that happened.
So I want to comment on the cast in this movie because it is a fantastic cast. Like I agree the middle is kind of draggy. I love the premise. I love a lot of things about the movie, but just the cast, going back and watching it and being like, okay, I love Kurt Russell. I love Donald Pleasance. I think he's the creepiest, talk about Bond villain. He was actually Blofeld in one movie. Harry Dean Stanton is a fantastic, horror actor, the guy from Alien, and he's in the Avengers as well. Adrienne Barbeau, she's in Creepshow as well and does a great job in that. The dad from Creepshow plays one of the cops. He's just a really cool, what do you call it? Character actor. Then you got Lee Van Cleef, awesome actor from lots of good Westerns, and Isaac Hayes. Mm-hmm. And Ernest Borgnine as well, all fantastic. Like just I forgot all these people were in it, but as I was watching it, I was like, "Holy cow! Look who's in it! Look who else is in it! Look who else is in it!" And it's one of those movies where I'm just like, "Wow, they had a really good casting director who just was like, I know who I'm gonna get." Had all kinds of cool ideas.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing I really like is like the use of light and shadow in the visuals. That's just so striking. So many of the shots, just it has a very film noir kind of thing with just these deep, deep shadows. And
I like that too, but I had a problem with it overall from a plot perspective. Why is it always dark except in one establishing shot? The outside is dark. He's there for 24 hours, but it's always night. And then at one point it's dawn, and then it's midnight again.
Dark
yeah.
again. Yeah. Don't ask too many questions.
Yeah.
It's such a minor point. I get it. He just wanted it to look like scary and cool, and that was the best way to do it.
Crime is so bad, there's no more sun.
Someone actually stole the sun.
Yeah.
Can I just talk about like a couple things that I thought were great?
No.
No.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
The brain. I love that Brain has like an oil well in his library. Like, just like
that was so cool.
He's just so smart. He's like, actually, there's oil right under the library.
It totally makes sense.
Here. It's like, I get oil for the Duke. And then I just love that John Carpenter, like, Snake Plissken, there's gangs out at night, and he hides in like the chock full of nuts, like the pre-Starbucks, it was chock full of nuts, right? So like he meets the girl there, and like you get this feeling like, oh yeah, she's gonna be a main character, and then no, she just gets grabbed down.
She gets pulled down through the floor, through
the floor, like just.
Well, that was Kurt Russell.
That's his wife.
That was Kurt Russell's wife.
Yeah.
So they just wrote that scene to put her in the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like she's billed as girl in chocolate nuts. She didn't even get the name or girl. And I was just like, you know what? Like you got to respect a director that's just willing to like just do crazy shit like that. I mean, it doesn't always work, but and I thought it was ridiculous. It's like, hey Snake, you got the tape? He's like, I got it right here. Like they didn't play the tape before he put it in the air.
They didn't test it,
but before millions of people. Like, but it kind of worked.
Yeah, I like that
like
twist.
Emotionally it worked, but I was like, they would have played that first.
They would have tested it.
I love how Liberty Island like is just huge. Like they have like buses leaving there and little bridges, and I was like,
where's it coming? Where are those buses coming from? You have to get on a ferry to get there.
Yeah, I was like, okay.
Well, apparently they actually did get permission to shoot on Liberty Island, and those shots on Liberty Island are the only thing shot in New York. That's it.
Huh.
Everything else was shot in St. Louis.
I imagine that it might have been hard to empty the streets because, like, one of the things that I was thinking was like this was pre-CGI, right?
Yes.
So, being that they had to do most of these shots like for real. It was like very little post effects. Like I thought that was really, really good. Like, the mythical 69th Street Bridge. I was like, wait, what? That actually looked like what is it? The 59th Street Bridge,
Street Bridge,
Queensboro,
the
little the Queensboro Bridge, a little extension on the side.
Yeah,
I'm like, that looks exactly like that, and I'm pretty sure that's a set, maybe not.
No, it was an actual bridge in another city, and John Carpenter legally bought the bridge for the filming, so that because the city was afraid of liability issues, and then he sold it back to them after the shoot
for $1.
Wow.
Yes. I pulled up a bunch of trivia about it because I was just so interested. And, it's some really interesting stuff. I think he got the city of St. Louis to shut down the power to an entire like neighborhood so that they could shoot those street scenes.
That's probably why they couldn't shoot in New York City. Today it's like they clear out one block, and the rest is CGI, and it just looks amazing. But the fact they couldn't do that, I'm like, it still really kind of works. Like the scene with the crashed airplane where Snake is just going, and I'm like, that looks like a crashed airplane. Like I don't know how they did that, but like it's in the middle of a city block.
You should read the trivia is actually really interesting on IMDb, but that was a real airplane. They like bought a real airplane and cut it up and put it in the street. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, it's kind of haunting watching, the president's plane like careening towards the World Trade Center. And I was like, ooh.
Yeah.
That was really gut-wrenching, that part.
I actually started looking up to see if they had a scene where it crashes into some buildings, and if they cut it after 9/11, but no, they didn't. Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking that too because I was like, oh wow, I don't remember them ever showing the actual crash, but I do vividly remember them cutting to the graphic of the egg kind of going, which is like a very Austin Powers-y type of thing too, that he gets in that egg and escapes. And I always, a couple of things I wanted to mention, I always was really kind of weirded out by the president, by his, the Donald Pleasance president, and by what he says when he gets into the pod. It's something like, God save me and God watch over you all. And he gets in the pod. He's like, basically like, I hope I live, and good luck to you. If there's anything left for you as well, I hope God helps you too.
Oh, he's great.
Well, that's his character. I mean, that's basically what he says to Snake at the end too.
Yeah, but when he's shaving too, it's like, oh, that's a shame,
that's what prompts. That's the other thing that kind of always stuck with me, and that I think does make this a good movie and make it kind of a classic, is at the end when Snake, asks a couple of questions like, why did you do this? And he's like, well, yeah, it's unfortunate. And then he's like, he decides in that moment, like, I just saved the world, but you know what? It's not worth it. And I'm going to take the tape with me and kind of pull all the insides out. And that always stuck with me, because I was always like, he decides it's not worth it, but what's he going to do? He's still on the world. He's going to get killed too. He seems to be in it for himself now. I guess he doesn't even care about that.
I think he's pretty nihilistic, like the whole movie, I think. And I think at the end, he gave the president a chance to morally redeem himself.
Right.
And the president didn't. And he's like, all right, fuck you. I'm going to destroy this tape, and I actually found that really satisfying.
Yeah. Well, I never found it. I guess I did find it. I thought it was really cool. Like every time I've seen it, I'm like, that's really cool that he does that. But it always kind of, those two things, what the president says and that moment, always just kind of lodge in my head whenever I think about this movie.
Yeah, yes. I mean, so there's a lot of really interesting stuff in this movie, and just if the middle were a little tighter.
Yeah. Well, if like anything happened other than him walking around from place to place, like it just, nothing ever builds on anything else, and I never feel invested in what he's going for,
Yeah. All right, but we need to move on to our other two movies. So, why don't we talk about Night of the Comet, because there are some similarities between Night of the Comet and Escape from New York. So Night of the Comet, the premise is that there's this comet and everyone goes out to watch it, except for our main characters, who for various reasons spend the night in steel structures. And then when they wake up in the morning, they find that the comet has turned everyone into dust. Some people, I guess, it's turned into zombies, and so there's only a handful of survivors in the city, and it's two teenage girls who are sisters, and a truck driver that they meet, and then so they sort of have to decide what to do in this newly depopulated Earth. So Andrea, you were the one really pushing for us to watch Night of the Comet. So tell us more about why you are such a fan of this movie.
Well, I remember watching it. I think I probably did see it in a theater, and I'm fairly sure the same age as the characters at the time. And it really hit me exactly where it should. I knew those characters because I was those characters, kind of, selfish, self-involved, rebellious against parents. When I was watching it, there's the scene where she goes, the stores are open. What do you want to do? Well, the stores are all open, and they go shopping. Everything about it was exactly who I was. And it's fun. And it's also a fun science fiction movie. As far as like a horror science fiction, I think you can probably classify it as. And watching it again, it held up to me. I mean, there's some quibbles about the ridiculousness of the science, but just as like an adventure story, it moves really well. The characters are fun. It's funny. There's the scene in the shopping mall with those guys is fantastic. Like that guy, whoever that guy was, the leader, is fantastic.
The evil stock boys.
Evil stock boys, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, they were great. And, and the dialogue's great. It stood up for me. The test of time.
I mean, I'll say, I'd never, like I said, I'd never even heard of this movie before, and I watched the trailer, and I was like, oh man, this is going to be bad. But then I watched it, and I was like, I thought it was surprisingly good. I mean, I think that, if you've seen 28 Days Later and stuff, it's a little bit redundant or superfluous at this point, but there's nothing particularly wrong with it. I thought I'll just note too that it was obviously inspired by Day of the Triffids, which is a great science fiction novel by John Wyndham, which starts off with there's this like meteor shower and everyone goes out to watch it, and then the next day everyone is blind who looked at the meteor shower. And so our main character had spent the night with bandages wrapped around his head, and so he didn't see the meteor shower, so he's one of the few people who can still see. So this is kind of like, people are turned to dust rather than go blind, but it's obviously, was taking a cue from that.
Tom, I just want to point out the main character, Regina, is the same woman from who was the girlfriend in Last Starfighter. And it starts out, we meet her, and she's playing a video game.
It's her turn to play a video game.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and I thought she was. I was really glad to see her get center stage and not be like the girlfriend. I thought that she had a good role in this.
Yeah, she's really good. Mm-hmm. She's really good in this, I thought.
Yeah.
Tom, any other thoughts on Night of the Comet?
Yeah, I'd never seen it before, and so I didn't have any nostalgia going into it at all, but I really, really enjoyed it. I thought the relationship between the sisters was really cool. Like Andrea said, they're shallow people, but toward each other, they kind of, they're in the same shallow world, and they have an understanding. And I thought the younger sister was really cool, like played a cool counterpoint to the older one. I loved the video game she was playing at the beginning. That was one of my favorites when I was younger. I couldn't remember the name of it, but I used to love that one. And there were
Tempest.
Tempest, that's it. Yeah.
Like that.
Did you used to play that? How'd you know that?
I just watched a video about it. I mean, I've heard of it, but I don't think I ever played it.
Okay, it was really
fun. A fun one. Yeah, that was a fun one.
Yeah, and I like, there were a lot of cool moments. There's when she comes out of the place and the zombies eating the Wrapup boyfriend there in front of her, and and just bizarre moments like when she walks in on her newfound boyfriend and in the radio station, and he's like, "Oh, excuse me, I was just kind of doing an ab workout during the apocalypse."
Yeah,
and it means
so random.
Why are you doing an ab workout? I don't get it. And then lots of bizarre things, like she's with the guy at the beginning. The reason she lives in the steel lined projection booth, and he's like, "Yeah, I'll give you $14 in the morning," and she's like,
"Oh God!"
She's like, "Oh, only $14? What does that make me if I sleep with you for just $14?" And I was like, "What if you sleep with him for $45? I don't know, but there were just, it was these bizarre like people who just felt real to me, and it, like you said, David, it did resonate with Day of the Triffids, which I really loved, and also with 28 Days Later, but I really enjoyed it. I'm glad it's out there. I'm glad I saw it.
How about Matt?
Yeah. So like I said, this was the first time I saw this. I loved it. I went into this like, what is this like? So like Andrea, when I saw Catherine Mary Stewart playing the video game, like, yes, it's her turn, finally. And I love that she's like really upset that someone got the high score, higher than her. So, there weren't that many movies that, at least off the top of my head, I can think of in the 80s of like really good kick-ass female characters. Mm-hmm. Like obviously Sigourney Weaver and Alien. Yeah. I'm sure there are others. Off the top of my head, I can't think of them. And I just love the fact that, these two sisters are just kicking ass, and like they're like, they just casually drop in like, her dad was a Vietnam vet and taught her, martial arts, and she's just like kicking ass and like, oh yeah, we'll just get some Uzis and like, just I love it, and even Robert Beltran, who I have mixed feelings about his portrayal of Chakotay in Star Trek Voyager. But I thought in this that he was great, and I loved like, when he goes home to see if his family's still alive, and then like he gets attacked by the kid. And it was just hilarious.
Yeah.
Like, it was terrifying.
Yeah, he's like, there goes the neighborhood. You're lucky I like kids.
So,
although, I was worried that he was going to meet a mombi, which I was like, I can't.
Yeah, I
can't watch. I was glad that didn't happen.
I've seen it, and I thought that was going to happen, but yeah.
Like, I knew I was in for a wild ride when the sister Samantha is like talking back to I'm not sure if it was a mother or I think it was a stepmother.
Oh yeah, and
then
she
like
punches her.
they slap each other, and then she socks her and knocks her down to the TV, and she's like, and then the next day she's like, yeah, I slept in the shed. I'm just like, I'm like, yes, I like at that. I'm like, I'm all in. I'm all in this movie, and it just gets, like you said, like the evil stock boys.
They were great.
Like, just the stuff that they were saying. I only saw this one side. I can't quote it, but I feel like the dialogue they were saying at that point is probably like super quotable.
Yeah.
And
when he's like, attention, shoppers.
No, something like, hello, kids out there in TV land or something like that. And then he's like, Bachelorette number 1 comes out, or Bachelorette number 2 gets it. It was just great dialogue. It was fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, I think like the difference between this movie and say Escape from New York is like, I think Escape from New York didn't recognize that it's pretty campy, and this movie does. Yeah. And this movie's like, I'm leaning into this. Yeah. I'm going all in. Yeah. And with like the evil, I don't know what they were, like the secret society that was like going to be the I guess survive the human race. I don't know if they were planning to save the human race. I think they just wanted to save themselves. But then like that was kind of muddy, because they're like, should we rescue these people? And it's like, well, if you knew this comet was going to kill everybody, and you were concerned about that, maybe you should have warned them.
Yeah.
Interesting note about the younger sister who's the cheerleader. So,
I know what you're going to say.
Joss Whedon watched this and got the idea for Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Oh my gosh! I was thinking that. I was thinking that. I was watching that and thinking she reminds me of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I wonder if Joss Whedon ever watched this and thought that. Like,
wait, I got another thing for you. That girl who played Samantha she was in Fast Times at Ridgemont High as the cheerleader character.
Oh, no way.
And spends the whole movie dressed as a cheerleader. Yep. One other cool thing I want to point out, if we don't, I don't want to forget this. So Robert Beltran from Voyager is in this. In the radio station, when they first meet him, there's one point where the sister, the younger sister looks around at all the mechanics and goes, "Oh, beam me up, Scotty." Oh, no. I was like, "Oh, cute."
That's
clearly not intentional, but nice little close the loop there.
Yeah. Yeah. So thank you, Andrea, for recommending this movie. I mean, it's surprisingly good for for this low budget kind of movie. And apparently the director wanted to make a sequel, but could never get I think this is right, but could never get the studio to sell him the rights back or something, even though they didn't do anything with it.
That's really upsetting, because, I mean, I would never steer you wrong on a movie. Not this one.
It's actually interesting to Matt's point about, filming in the pre-CGI era. Mm-hmm. There are like numerous shots in this movie where you can see people walking around in the background.
Oh, really?
In the supposedly unpopulated city. Yeah.
And all they did was put like a red filter over the sky.
Yeah, I know.
It's kind of funny. But
I just also want to point out that nobody says like having sex. They keep saying making it, which is so 80s. Like, I remember.
Yeah.
We're gonna make it. Like, oh my God.
So yeah, I mean, surprisingly good. I mean, like I said, like if you've seen as many zombie movies as I have, there's not a lot here that you haven't seen before, but it's, certainly a fun sort of time capsule of science fiction movies from this era. All right, so let's get to our classic, Howard the Duck, which was my new favorite movie back in, what year was this? 1986, my new favorite movie of 1986. So I think Andrea had never. Wait.
I'd seen parts of it, but I never saw the whole thing.
Okay. Had anyone seen this before all the way through?
Not me.
I don't think I have. No.
Okay. Well, so Andrea, what was it like watching Howard the Duck all the way? Oh, wait, let me describe the premise.
Yeah.
So, oh boy. So Howard
Yeah.
Good luck, Dave.
is like a 4-foot tall anthropomorphic duck who lives on Duck World, which is like, looks just like New York City, except everyone's a duck.
And the planet's shaped like an egg, just FYI.
And so he's just settling down to peruse Play Duck magazine when his recliner gets sucked up into the sky, and he hurtles through space and ends up on Earth in like Cleveland or something. Yeah. And meets a sort of an aspiring rock star played by Leah Thompson, and lots of other stuff happens after that.
That's a great plot synopsis. Thank you.
But so Andrea, so overall thoughts on Howard the Duck?
I pretty much watched the entire thing with my jaw on the floor. And I'm really not, there's very little, hyperbole there. It was my mouth was open at how insanely terrible it was in every fucking way possible. And there was one point actually where I was like, all right, I'm just going to give in and go with it. And then it lost me again. It was just everything about it was terrible. Like scenes went on for so long. Nothing made sense. It was just like, and the creepiness of it, like her kissing a duck and she's half naked. And I was just like,
oh yeah, they're gonna make it. Andrea, in that scene.
Yeah.
they're totally about to make it.
Oh my God, totally making it. They're totally making it. And you know what? My overall thought about this movie as I was watching it, other than holy shit, what the fuck? Who thought this was a good idea? Was
George Lucas coming off of Star Wars.
Yes. Oh boy, you gotta take explains a lot of stuff. And just take the keys away from him. Don't let him.
I was laughing hysterically through this whole movie, just thinking about how did this get made.
Yes.
And like basically there's a couple of factors. So George Lucas wanted to give a job to one of his friends from film school who ended up directing this movie. And then he also wanted to give business to his newly formed special effects company, ILM. And he also had a contractual obligation to do a live action movie. So this was originally conceived as an animated movie, but then they switched it to live action because he had to give a live action movie to some studio. So it's sort of like this confluence of crazy factors that led to this movie coming out the way it is. Tom, overall thoughts on Howard the Duck?
Well, I'd never seen it before, like the rest of us, and always thought it was a terrible movie. And then on watching it, I actually realized it is a terrible movie. And I really wished I could send this movie through a dimensional gateway. It's composed almost entirely of the cringeworthy moments of 1,000 other bad movies. It's even in the 80s when we didn't know any better, we knew better.
Yeah.
I mean, even the musical score sounds embarrassed all the way through it. It was like safely buried in the past, and you dug it up, Dave. And and basically, I was reminded many times during this movie of the scene in Sin City where the policewoman is telling Mickey Rourke's character about how Elijah Wood ate her fingers, and she screams, "He made me watch." That's how I felt toward you through the entire movie.
Yeah. All right. Well, let me tell you, because I was so curious to go back and watch this to be like, why did I like this as a kid? As an 8-year-old or whatever.
Because you were 8.
And I think there's two things I liked about it. Going back and watching it now. And one is I think Howard the Duck as a character is legitimately like funny and like cool and like entertaining. Like, just like the way he looks, the way he talks, it's just like funny. I don't know. There's just something about it that really works for me. But then also like I've always really loved Lovecraftian stuff. And the whole thing with the Dark Overlord toward the end, I think was like one of the first things I saw that was like obviously like taking a cue from H.P. Lovecraft. Mm-hmm. And so I think it's those two things together, the sort of like cool protagonist and the Lovecraftian horror, when I had no exposure to that previously. I think that must have been what I liked about it when I was 8. But I don't know, Tom, because you have kids who are like somewhere around that age, right?
No, my kids are 4 and 6, and I think they would absolutely love it. Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
I think
there you go.
But hold on a second. Here was one of the big problems I had with this movie is it should have been a kids movie, but it wasn't.
Yeah, I would never show it to my kids. No, it's definitely an adult movie.
The woman with the breasts,
Yeah.
and then she pulls
With a little duck condom.
She pulls the condom out of his. And not only it's a condom, it's an unwrapped condom in his
It's unwrapped.
wallet.
Yeah.
Who the
And not
hell's
only is
gonna
it
do
an
that?
unwrapped
Please.
condom, not only that, but then she kind of smiles in like an
it's so
endearing.
cute.
She's like, "Oh, that's so endearing."
Why is she touching it? I wouldn't touch an unwrapped condom. Like there was so much about it that was inappropriate for children, and yet it's a children's movie. Like why did they should have made a kids movie.
I think that comes from the comic.
It's the 80s.
I know.
I think the comic was like a raunchy, goofy. I think it works as a comic, like as a paper pages comic, where you've got like all these funny like duck puns all the way through it, and like the planet shaped like an egg, and Howard being real raunchy. It works as like an indie comic.
Yeah.
But then thinking that you could take that and it would work as a live action movie just takes the kind of egomania you only get after you just make like the biggest selling movie of all time, and you're thinking, I can do anything. I can make a movie. I remember thinking this when it first came out in the theater. I remember thinking, I didn't go see it because I knew it was going to be bad. But I remember thinking, this is George Lucas thinking, I can do anything, and just being wrong.
I also want to mention the scene where Howard works at like some sort of like sex spa
that was it.
for like 4 minutes.
How does that like a employment agency get you a job at a sex club? Like, is that a thing? I know it was the 80s, but that's a little out there even for the 80s. Ugh.
Yeah, so I don't know, but yeah, I totally agree with you, Tom. That this is like it's like a really weird combination of like a kids movie, like a sort of like Animal House style sex comedy, and a horror movie. And it's like, yeah, like it and I think some of those things could go together, but the kids and the sex comedy part doesn't work together.
No.
Matt, any other thoughts on Howard the Duck?
Well, there are a few movies that I never, ever, ever want to see again, and this is one of them.
Yeah.
The first 5 minutes were just hit over the head with pun after bad pun after bad pun. It's like 5 minutes in, I've heard about 75 duck puns, and I'm like, I can't. And like, we're not even at the plot yet. Leah Thompson, she does her best with this, and she comes off as endearing, and I liked her. Howard the Duck is just creepy. He's just creepy and weird. I don't like him. He's just not cute at all. I mean, Dave, you sent us that video, like the origin of Howard the Duck.
Yeah.
And I've never read the comic, but my understanding of it from watching that was that it was kind of meant as satire and sort of
social commentary
pointing out like hypocrisy of the modern world, etc. And that I don't think there's really any of that in this. I mean, it's played for the bad puns. Tim Robbins.
Oh God.
Every now and then he gets these roles, and
Oscar-winning actor.
Yeah,
right. And I was just like, my God, he's hamming it up. It's just terrible. I loved Jeffrey Jones in Ferris Bueller, right?
Yeah.
But in this, he's just like I just want to cringe, and I think it's just because the writing is just so poor. I don't know what else to say about it except that I found it really kind of hard to watch.
Yep.
Okay, so nobody likes Howard the Duck except me, like the character.
Do you still like it?
No, I don't like the movie, but I like I don't know. There's just something about him. the character.
I will say
himself.
I don't like the character. I agree that I find him creepy and I think he's supposed to be. I think he's from a raunchy comic that, you know, they're trying to say, hey, the heck with all these kids comics you grew up with, you know, Daffy Duck and Donald Duck and all that. Let's have like a grown up, kind of like the baby in Roger Rabbit with the cigar, you know, when they're not filming. I think it's supposed to be kind of like that, but I don't like the character. I don't think that works in a movie. I think it works in a paper comic book. But I did like his voice. I did like the voice characterization. Whoever did the voice, I liked the way it sounded. That's about the only thing I liked about the movie.
Let me tell you the observation I had about Howard watching this now, that I like once I saw it, I couldn't get out of my head. It's like he reminds me of Harlan Ellison, right?
Yeah.
Because he's like short, kind of cute, kind of violent, kind of raunchy,
Kind of an asshole.
kind of sensitive and talented. So it's like this, yeah, I don't know, like once and well dressed. Like once I saw it, I was like, I just couldn't stop seeing Harlan Ellison. Like in every scene.
Like I was saying before, I think there's that 80s sort of acceptance of the lovable asshole, and I think that Howard the Duck was trying to tap into that like archetype, but I didn't really find him lovable at all, and I think a lot of that had to do with just the creepiness of
It's creepy.
of the actual costume, and I think that if this were like, you know, a human character, I probably would feel differently, but it's just maybe it's those eyes, those damn realistic eyes that like bug the hell out of me.
I thought the mask, that the costume was very good. Like I saw emotions in that, you know, 1980s costume. I thought that was good. I just
let me tell you. So apparently, George Lucas spent $2 million of his own money to create that costume, and they had a team of like 9 animators or something running it with remote controls, like during the performances.
Well, I mean, money well spent. Now, I read some of the trivia on this too. He lost ILM because of this.
No, Pixar.
He lost Pixar. That's right. And the director never worked again after this.
Yeah, correct.
And apparently John Landis was possibly going to make it as the director, was approached to be director.
You don't mean make it.
No, I don't. Sorry. No. Too much making it. John Landis was approached to be the director and said no because he had just made Blues Brothers, which has a huge car chase scene. And he said he didn't want to make another movie with a car chase scene. And I'm like, I don't think that was the reason. I think that was
dodge the bullet on that one.
I think that's the polite reason.
Yeah,
I knew in '86 this movie sucked.
I can't imagine anybody reading this script would ever go, yeah, definitely. Like the car chase is the least of the problems.
Right.
Yeah. Wait, let me read the trivia. So this says, rumors circulated that Universal production heads Frank Price and Sidney Sheinberg engaged in a fistfight after arguing over who was to blame for greenlighting the film.
Yeah, I mean, I could see Jaws getting broken over this piece of shit.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of people lost jobs after this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like the head of the head of the studio, I think.
But it has like kind of a cult following, and like there's a lot of, you know, like they included Howard in Guardians of the Galaxy in the post-credits scene.
Well, it's also right. Like the movie The Room has a cult following too.
Yes.
Wait, isn't Howard? Is he only in the post-credits scene? I thought he was in the collector's in the background in the collector's kind of collection.
He's in the post scene where he talks because his glass thing has been blown up.
I know some people love this movie. Like if you go on the Gen X Reddit forum, they're every now and then they do like, what was your favorite movie of the 80s? And Howard the Duck came up.
Oh,
like
God.
Some people are like, oh, I love Howard the Duck. Oh, yeah, it was so funny.
But here's the thing. I love bad movies. Like I love a good bad movie. This is not a good bad movie. This is a bad movie.
It's just nothing but bad.
Nothing but bad.
I remember reading a Douglas Adams quote one time where he said, or it might have been when I actually interviewed him. He said, I hate that. I think it was a quote. I hate that expression tongue in cheek because it means basically we don't think this is very good. so we're not going to do it properly. And that popped up several times when I was watching this movie. It's not even like Bubba Hotep bad, where you go and watch that movie and you're like, this movie's bad, but it's so much fun. And then you go and watch the special commentary on the DVD, and it's like really funny, but it's horrible. Like, it's not even, like you said, Andrea, it's not even like bad, good, bad. It's just bad.
Bad.
Well, I think the big problem with this is that it's an hour and 51 minutes
Yes,
long.
that was the other problem.
And if it was like 82 minutes long,
it would still be bad.
I was watching that scene where I just kind of was like, I gave up again. That diner scene where they go to the
yeah, that's
it's like 40 minutes long. Holy shit.
Horrible.
And nothing happens really, and then they blow up the fucking thing. And
they should have cut that whole thing 100%. Yeah.
See, I disagree that shorter would make it better, but at least it would be shorter.
Yeah.
But I think if it were shorter, it might move more into like good, bad.
Maybe.
I don't know.
I was so creeped out by the naked duck lady and the condom I was really creeped out by it. I
do have to say, like, Leah Thompson puts in a heroic performance to make you think she cares about this animatronic duck.
God bless her.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree.
I don't think she sells it quite as well as Ali Sheedy in Short Circuit. I
was
feel
just thinking of that.
There was a big gap there between those two performances, but I do agree she did the best she could.
She's pretty good.
I know you guys loved Ali Sheedy in that. She annoyed the fuck out of me in that movie. I have to admit. I don't know if I said that last time, but no, she annoyed me to no end. And I liked Leah Thompson in this. Like I said, it was a heroic effort to make me buy the character, and she's probably the only character in that movie that's actually likable.
I'll go along with that.
Actually, so speaking of Leah Thompson, so she actually, I guess we're almost out of time here, so we can get into some potential remakes. So she had actually pitched Marvel on directing a Howard the Duck movie. But they passed on it. But it says that they told her that they do have future plans for the character.
Oh God!
So that don't include her.
Howard the Duck fans,
help us all.
I think somebody could make a good movie out of the concept. I just don't think that was anywhere near. It was like they did everything wrong they possibly could in that movie. But I think if you take a character who's like a duck. I mean, look at Spider-Pig from, was it Spider-Pig or what was in Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse? There was like some crazy Spider-Man character or something.
Spider-Pig is like where
Homer Simpson
has the pig walking around on the ceiling.
No, I know, but there was a character eerily like that in the Spider-Verse movie. I just can't remember what it was. I think it was like a Porky Pig Spider-Man. But
okay, actually I haven't seen that, so I couldn't.
No, spoiler alert. But no, I think it could be a fun movie done like in a kid friendly way or done differently. I don't know. I think it could be fun.
See, I think it should be like a sex comedy. It should be like Animal House or like Porky's or something like because like we don't need like there's like a million like kids movies like like I saw one of the producers. He's like, we should have done Ted. Like the sort of.
You mean like a family guy? Yeah, like a Ted. That's exactly what I was thinking of. Yeah.
Yeah, like the sort of raunchy teddy bear movie, like something like that. Like
Howard the Duck reminds me of like Andrea. You probably have a better idea of this than most of us. Like when you go and if you've ever seen like a comedy act or you go to like a live TV performance, they bring out like the bad comedian to get you warmed up so that. The host jokes sound funnier. Like that's what Howard the Duck sounds like to me, like that bad warm-up comedian. Like his jokes just are flat, they're cringeworthy. They're just like, when are you going to leave to get to the main act? Like that's all I felt.
Well, a good warm-up guy should actually be good. I've known lots of good warm-up guys.
Okay.
So.
Yeah,
Howard is not one of them.
No, I was rooting for the monster to end everything. I was just rooting for the end of the world. I was like, please let this be over.
It's just like that whole scene. It went on forever and nobody else did anything. They're literally standing there going, Howard, fix it. And it's like, why don't any of you people do anything? I know I'm like trying to apply logic to a ridiculous duck movie, but it's frustrating watching that sort of thing, especially because, and the reason I'm watching that sort of thing and being annoyed by it is because the whole plot itself and the story itself is ridiculous, you know?
Well, the whole thing with him like beating up her manager, like made no sense. It's like, he's like a 4-foot tall duck. Like it should be. He's like, no, I'll be your new manager because I have a background in the music industry and stuff. Like that would have made sense, you know. But just for him to be like the tough guy who like beats everyone up, that didn't like.
Because he knew duck
so
foo.
Yeah.
And then the
quack
foo. Sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. That's a different martial arts discipline from poultry. I also the reason he wins is because he gets on this like electric cart that has a really powerful laser on it that somebody else made. That didn't make any sense either. But I guess I'm just splitting hairs at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So let's move on from Howard the Duck. So like other remakes, Weird Science. Let's see.
You gonna remake that?
They were talking about. Let's see. I'll just read this. As of 2013, Universal Studios was planning a Weird Science remake with original producer Joel Silver returning and Michael Bacall writing the film. The film was set to attempt to distinguish itself from the original Weird Science by being an edgier comedy in line with 21 Jump Street and The Hangover, which were R-rated. The studio stated the rating for this Weird Science remake was not certain at that stage of the movie's development. However, as of mid-2019, nothing of the remake had materialized. In 2017, Elan Mitchell-Smith, who played Wyatt, talked about a sequel to Weird Science starring Channing Tatum.
Okay.
I don't know how that works.
So I guess it'll be gender flipped, where like they create Channing Tatum.
Oh, there you go. Makes sense.
I like that idea actually. I'm totally into that.
Yeah, maybe. Let's see. And then Escape from New York. In March 2017, it was announced that Robert Rodriguez would direct a remake of the film with Carpenter producing it. In February 2019, it was reported that Leigh Whannell will be writing the script after Luther creator Neil Cross completed a recent iteration of the project. Leigh Whannell did the recent movie The Invisible Man, which was actually really, really good.
I haven't seen it. Me neither.
That would be... No, it's really good. I would definitely recommend it.
Now, Escape from New York had a sequel, Escape from LA, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was there another one after that?
I don't think so.
No.
I saw Escape from LA, and I can't remember if it was good or not.
It's not.
It's not.
Okay.
Yeah.
I remember him surfing on a wave.
That's the only thing I remember about it too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not good.
Yeah. If you don't remember if it was good or not,
it's not good.
Probably wasn't.
Not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Night of the Comet. In October 2018, Orion Pictures hired Roxanne Benjamin to write a sci-fi horror remake of the 1984 cult classic. As of April 2019, Benjamin confirmed she had submitted her scripts for the remake to Orion.
What year?
2019.
Oh. Well, maybe it isn't, COVID set everything back, so maybe that is, will come around. Fingers crossed.
So Andrea, are you excited about the prospect of any of those remakes? Other than the Channing Tatum one?
I don't know that I'd say excited. I have a problem with remakes. I think it's just like stop remaking movies. How about make new movies? But I'm in the minority there. Everything in Hollywood right now is IP. I'd certainly go and see it, That's about the best I could say about it. A remake of Escape from New York that would be a good story. I would totally be there for that.
With Robert Rodriguez was he the director or the producer, Dave?
It says in March 2017 he was announced as the director. I mean, like these things, they turn over so fast, but he was at that point at least slated to direct it.
So I assume Kurt Russell will not be playing Snake Plissken.
I don't think so.
No, I doubt it.
Well, unless they do like a Force Awakens kind of thing where he's like
passes the torch
or something.
Maybe it'll be Channing Tatum.
Pliskin Jr. Yeah.
Just plug
Pliskin.
Just plug him into
Channing
everything.
Tatum will be he'll be Howard the Duck.
Yep.
He'll be like whatever. I mean, I think that Weird Science. I think that you could do a really interesting, especially like I forget who mentioned like internet porn and stuff. I just feel like there's so much stuff with like, like sex and the internet and technology and stuff. I feel like you could do a really interesting story about creating a virtual person now that you couldn't have done back in 84 or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm with Andrea in that I wish that they weren't doing so many remakes, because there's like I think all of us are writers, right? Yeah. And we're all right. We're all creating stuff, and I read a lot of long and short fiction, and there's so much good stuff out there. And I just wish Hollywood would, produce more of that stuff.
Well, they are.
Yeah.
Like everybody who's written something is like selling IP. Everything that Hollywood's buying now, the rights to short stories and novels, because all they want to make is movies based on books, short stories, plays, anything that existed before, because it comes with a built-in audience. And because making films is so expensive, they want even the smallest amount of built-in audience, they'll take it. Nobody wants to look. You can't sell a spec script, like an original spec script. You cannot sell that right now. Nobody wants to see it. I just wrote a script. It's a rom-com about, it's about the poet, the Roman poet Ovid. It's kind of like Shakespeare in Love set in ancient Rome. And I had somebody in LA read it for me. And his suggestion was put on the front cover based on, the works of Ovid, so that they think it's IP and they'll be more likely to go for it. And I'm like, that's the stupidest thing ever. But also I'm absolutely doing it. I'm absolutely doing it because it's, and God, if somebody asked me if I have the rights to the work, oh, please ask me that. Please.
Andrew, you have to keep in mind you're dealing with the sort of people who greenlighted Howard the Duck.
Yes, I am aware of that. And they have not changed in the last 30 years. It's still a level of stupid that just is unparalleled. Here's me trying to sell my script, and they're all talking about how everybody's a moron. Whatever. Fine.
Yeah, I guess we can just return to our typical theme that if people would just hire us,
script doctors,
everything would be better.
You need a sign, a big sign that says the script doctor is in, 5 cents.
Yeah.
All right, so we're pretty much out of time. So why don't we start wrapping this up? So Matt, final thoughts on these awesome 80s movies, science fiction movies we just watched.
Like I said, Night of the Comet, I had not seen it before. I loved it, and I want to watch it again. The others, Innerspace was a funny movie. I enjoyed it. Martin Short was great. It wouldn't be the first on my list to do another rewatch. Weird Science again. Lots of funny jokes there, lots of nostalgia, definitely some problems with misogyny. So if they do remake it, I think they'll hopefully have to address that. And Escape from New York, great premise, a little slow in the middle, but still enjoyable in parts. Howard the Duck, keep that. Take that, all the DVDs and CDs and recordings and put them in a big pit and pour gasoline on it and set it on fire. I never want to see that movie again. That was just painful to watch.
Yeah.
But the other stuff was fun. So,
Tom, final thoughts.
Night of the Comet, watch it. Weird Science, watch it if you're an adolescent or you're and you can get by or you're older and you can get by the problems. Escape from New York, watch it if you're in a gritty kind of mood. Innerspace, I'd say watch it if you haven't seen it. Watch it, it's fun. Howard the Duck, watch it if you're feeling incredibly masochistic, or you just are hating yourself, or maybe not. Maybe watch it if you feel like your life is too good and you need some kind of something to bring you down. It's like the blues kind of.
Okay, and Andrea, final thoughts.
Everything everybody said is pretty much how I feel. Night of the Comet. I knew about it. Obviously, I was the one who sold it to you guys, and I'm very happy that everybody loved it. And it was exactly as much fun as I remember. Weird Science is a classic in my mind that is super problematic, but still has scenes and lines that make me die laughing. Best line in a movie. I still use this line. Anybody with a haircut like that's got to be an asshole. I still use that line. Still. Yeah. Innerspace, I think, Tom, you hit it. It's like, it's fun. And you should watch it if you haven't watched it. And where was I? Did I get all of them?
Yeah, I think you did. I think you just blanked out Howard the Duck on purpose.
Oh, okay. Escape from New York. Yeah, it's a classic, but boy does it drags in the middle like a dead body. And Howard the Duck. I mean, good Lord.
That's all you need to say.
Yeah, I don't even know what to say there. Yeah, from the person who loves terrible movies, don't go near it. Just don't go near it.
Yeah, so definitely Howard the Duck, Innerspace, and Weird Science turned out to be not as good as I remembered. Escape from New York, pretty good, and Night of the Comet, pretty good. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily like rush out and watch them or anything, but they have their moments. And I mean, I guess just, people are always like, oh, the good old days were so great. Movies were so great, so much better back in the 80s and stuff. And sometimes you go back and watch these movies and you appreciate more of what we have now.
I you know what? You bring that up and I agree with that. Just watching all these old movies, a lot of what I felt about them is nostalgia.
Yes.
And I think I remember at one point that maybe it was the episode we did last time. I kept thinking, did child actors get so much better since the 80s? Because every single one of the children in those movies was terrible. I just think in some cases, and the movies have gotten better, definitely.
Yeah, I just feel like back in the mid 80s, like there were so few people who had access to movie cameras because they were so expensive and everything. Like I feel like you could shoot just about anything and it would become a cultural touchstone. I mean, that was like,
right.
I definitely had that feeling.
Yeah.
I think there's a survivor bias that goes on too when you think about movies from the past, that only the good ones really survive and are still like talked about by a lot of people today, and you forget about the 99% that was just awful. In the same way, when I was a kid, I thought all British television was awesome because what we got that came across the pond was great. You got Monty Python, you got Fawlty Towers, you got so many great British shows. And then you go over there. I went over there and lived there for a year and watched a lot of their TV. And I was like, oh, no, it's just that the good stuff gets across the pond. In the same way, they were like, your TV is brilliant. It's excellent. And I was like, no, you're only getting the good stuff over here. You're not getting, the bad stuff isn't making it. In the same way, the bad stuff doesn't make it from the past into the future as much, except in your memory where everything feels good.
Well, I agree with that, except the really terrible movies you always remember. Like Howard the Duck. I still knew it was bad. Like you still remember it because it's so awful.
Yeah.
And it used to play on HBO all the damn time, too. They were like, let's put that bad movie on again.
Good Lord. But at least at that point, you can walk away from it. We had to watch this whole thing.
Well, there was one movie channel. You had to wait 2 hours.
Oh, you're right.
Movie came on. Yeah.
So I don't know where we go from here with these panels because I have a list of about 18 movies from the science fiction movies from the 80s, which are legitimately good, but they're like everyone's seen them 20 times. Everyone knows they're good. And
did any of you ever see the movie Dreamscape with Dennis Quaid?
Yes, I loved that.
That's a good movie.
And I was almost going to suggest that. I know we were talking about watching Cocoon and we couldn't find it. Yeah, so that one.
I don't know. I don't know, Matt. I just watched that for our panel on dreams and science fiction, and I was.
Oh, you did?
Really?
You were not.
I remember loving that movie.
I mean, again, it could be like the Suck Fairy shows up, and it's like your memories are not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do remember it being scary.
Yes, it scared the hell out of me. That creature that looked sort of like a cobra snake in a kid's nightmare.
Yeah.
Holy shit! That freaked me out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. But, so,
I mean, come on, you're watching it, as an adult. It's very different.
Yeah, but so basically, like, I don't know, where do we go? Do we go into the like legitimately good movies that everybody knows, or do we like descend further and further into movies that are less and less?
Oh, please, let's not watch bad movies. I'm so I'm so like burned out on. I mean, could we do this? Could we do like good movies that everyone knows are good, but do like a theme? We could do like cheerleaders in science fiction, or like with that. Well, I'm not saying that because I want to watch cheerleaders, but
well,
okay,
I mean...
but just because we talked about the different cheerleaders, I was like, oh, that would be a cool theme. Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and then I was thinking of Hayden Panettiere's character in was that Heroes?
Heroes.
And I was wondering if that was inspired by Night of the Comet. And I don't know, but maybe there's some kind of theme we can do where there's actual good movies we can talk about. And that way I get to watch good movies.
Well, I was actually going to suggest maybe moving on to the 90s. Science fiction and fantasy movies from the 90s.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, there's like, what is it, Hardware?
Yeah, there's a lot.
There's a lot.
Maximum Overdrive.
Maximum Overdrive.
All right. Well, if you're listening, let us post on Twitter and Facebook and let us know which. Do you want more? Should we move into the 90s?
What about the 60s and 70s? What about that too? Twitter. Again, that's a Twitter question. Would you rather see 90s, 60s, 70s?
I kind of feel like the 70s they're terrible. Like, I mean, not all of them. Star Wars, clearly great, but.
No. The Thing, and Dave said they've talked about The Thing and Alien to death on other panels, but those are two.
No, that's right. Alien is the
science
70s. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let us know. We got to wrap this up, but give us some feedback on where we take these panels from there. So let's wrap things up there. So we've been speaking with Andrea Kail, Matthew Kressel, and Tom Gerencer. So thanks everyone so much for joining us.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
And that was our panel. So big thanks again to Andrea Kail, Matthew Kressel, and Tom Gerencer for joining us on the show. And remember that Geek's Guide to the Galaxy is made possible thanks to support from listeners like you. So if you enjoy the show and want it to continue, please support us on Patreon over at patreon.com/geeks or via PayPal over at geeksguideshow.com/crowdfunding. All right, so that was our show. So thanks everyone for listening, and we'll see you next time.
The Geek's Guide to the Galaxy is a production of Wired.com. For more information about the show, visit geeksguideshow.com. To learn more about your host, visit davidbarrkirtley.com. Music and voiceover produced by yours truly, Jack Kincaid. If you enjoyed this program, tell your friends. If you didn't enjoy it, tell no one. Thank you for listening.